This is not even that bad. I think this is one of 6 sections that
All right, let's kick it off. Howdy, everybody. Good to see you again. I think I met most of you. I'm Nick Spiller, filling in for Josh tonight. Have a really awesome guest. We're going to kick it off here, per usual, some open pitches. Y'all know the drill by now. Someone will win $100, best pitch. So, is it going to be you? Who?
Yeah, so we got Philip and Brandon that signed up. Everyone else is welcome to also join.
Got it. So yeah, Philip, Brandon, anybody else who wants to pitch, just go ahead and line up on the side. And do we just use, is this the only slide we talk about right now?
Yeah.
All right, sweet. All right, well, it's all right. It's all right, didn't spill. I got it. You go line up. I got it. All right. Yeah, I got it. All right. Anyone else? All right. That was my fault. You going first? All right. Set it.
All right, testing. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Brandon Doan, and I want to first start things off by asking you guys, how many of you have been to a football game? You can show by raise of hands. All right, nearly everyone. So I want to first ask you guys, or I want you to think about, what do you think happens if a player receives a concussion or a brain injury? Well, we have to still make sure they're still functioning after the game, right? So we use a remarkable technology called an EEG to scan their brains, and that stands for electroencephalogram, and it's not just for athletes. We use it, it's essential for understanding epilepsy, and we use it in a lot of brain and neurological studies. Now, the entire industry itself is worth $5 billion within the United States, but there's a big issue. What I discovered as I worked as an EEG technician is that the time it takes to prepare for an EEG takes longer than the EEG itself. And what I mean by this is that to run the machine, it's around 20 to 40 minutes. And the actual time that it takes for a fully trained EEG technician to prepare for that test is around 45 minutes. That's already longer than the test itself. And keep in mind, to fully train an EEG technician, it takes around 10 months to 2 years. So to go straight into the proposed solution, I want to try to replace the archaic technology we currently use, which is literally a measuring tape and a marker to measure and mark the head, and replace it with a device or a cap that instantly gets the measurements on the head. I won't bore you with too much of the details to save time for the presentation, but think of the pain points. If we decrease the time it takes to prepare for an EEG, even by 20 minutes, that allows hospitals to see more patients, it allows them to put less investment in training new EEG technicians, and ultimately, the hospital makes more money. Thank you for your time. Hey.
All right, excellent job. You've made a lot of progress this semester. I could definitely tell, especially just listen. Like I remember some of the feedback we gave you before about like WTF is an EEG, and you did a good job educating us at the beginning of your pitch. You still moved through it really well. I think you can come up with a killer closing. It would be a good goal next is like, how do you say something clever at the very end that like sums it up and is memorable and is something besides just, okay, thank you for listening, that's my pitch or something. Not that you did exactly that. Is this a medical device?
Yes. The EEG itself is a medical device, but the idea I have is kind of like something to help when you're preparing the medical device.
But will your product need to go through an FDA pathway?
Fortunately, no, because if it's just a cap device, it's no technology or no chemicals, we actually don't need an FDA patent.
Yeah, I would mention that in your pitch. I think, especially for investors, that will make a big difference on whether they're interested or understand it. And it's a very specific investor that will fund something through an FDA pathway, or the broader pool of investors that will do like something tangential, but not have to get the full clearance.
Yeah, no, it was really good. One thing that I would say that I had to do with Y Combinator in our pitch, because it's a very quick pitch like that, is one thing you want to get across is why you'll be successful. And I know it's hard because you're still in school, but giving the investor or whoever the audience is some comfort that you're the person to do it, whether it's because of your experience or your unique perspective on the problem, I think would be good to mention as well.
Thank you.
All right, come on down.
Testing. Hey everyone. Okay, so just show of hands, who here liked online school? Who here did not like online school? Okay, a lot more of you clearly did not like online school than liked it. And I think one of the main reasons for that is because online school is really hard to actually learn the topics. It's really hard to communicate with your teachers, to internalize and grasp those concepts. So my idea for today is to implement VR into education. We've been doing schooling the same way since the 1800s, with very little improvement. Yes, sometimes we now have smart boards. Sometimes we put things on Canvas. But I know a ton of professors here that still use chalk, right? So if we can just evolve the learning method so that we can internalize things better, we have the potential to grow so much smarter, so much faster. And we have the technology. Now imagine this. You're a student going through a time like COVID, where you have to stay home for long periods of time, and it's very difficult to be able to process what your teachers are saying and really get what you need to out of school. Now, instead of just being in that dull reality, imagine you could just plug in, put on your VR headset, and instead of reading about some time in history, you can go and see it. You can go and view what's happening. You can go and do science experiments without the risk of dangerous chemicals. All of these things are possible and will drastically increase the level of learning and creativity that students have, and we can do it simply by using VR. Now imagine that same student going through their education system from kindergarten all the way to their senior year of high school and into college with that level of information. They're going to be much more prepared for the real world and much more interested in learning. There have been famous scientists, including Albert Einstein and Neil deGrasse Tyson, who have said that the biggest disservice that the education community has done is hinder people from wanting to be lifetime learners. And a process like this that makes learning fun and engaging, no matter where you are, is going to make people lifetime learners. And so, whether you were into online school or not, I hope that we can improve our educational system and make sure that we can encourage students to learn now and for the rest of their lives. Thank you.
All right, don't go anywhere. Is this your first time pitching?
No, I pitched
Okay.
the first week.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. Well, really good start. I am left curious exactly how this fits into the education experience, and specifically how they get access to the headsets, and if that's something that it's like you're giving this to classes and then the students are taking it home, or the parents are buying it, or and then also is it is this a full-time learning opportunity, or is it just I can go listen to my lecture in here if I can't make it in person, or so you don't have to answer all that now, but I think really the use case, I guess, is what I'm interested in. Especially the first use case that will get you a lot of customers for cheap early on is where I would try to build that into your pitch.
Thank you.
Real quick,
Sorry.
following up on Nick, I think you really sold the problem. You explained, what's wrong with the educational system. You asked the audience. I think that was all great. I think the one thing, to touch on what Nick was saying is communicating more what the solution is, right? Are you selling a headset that's going to solve this, or are you just selling an application that is on the Quest, right, or is on the Oculus, or whatever it may be, to help solve this? And I think targeting more the solution, what that solution is, would kind of complete that pitch.
Awesome. Thank you.
Data, data, data. This is what the media is talking about all the time. It's the next oil. It's the golden juice. This is what's supposed to take humanity to the next level. But what if I told you, in business, the people who are selling your product can't understand the data? Too much, in fact, can reduce productivity, reduce sales. What if I told you the top software that these companies use, Salesforce, etc., they're too complicated? Your sales staff don't understand how to get the most value out of this valuable data that your business is collecting. That's why I want to make an AI CRM, something that can specifically utilize all the data that your business is collecting in a very friendly chat-based format that can automatically create graphs and other presentations for you automatically. To recap, this solution solves the issue of too much data for your sales staff. This is going to democratize data and increase sales for any business. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna start calling you Happy Feet. You're like, you want to stay planted until you sit down.
Okay.
But yeah, I think you just, in all seriousness, it's distracting to have to like follow you around the stage. And if you want to like take a step into a point or move around here or there, I think that's all right. But I would try to station yourself. I like where you're going with your tone and like the slow, very punctual tone that you're taking. You haven't perfected it yet, and so it kind of comes across a little strange. Like you doesn't quite sound natural. And I think if you sit, kind of stand still, and talk a little faster, which it's good to talk slow. Like usually, like slower is better, but I think you're just maybe a little slower, too slow still, and you just end up like, I think spending too much time on the problem, and I think you want to like get through the problem and then get a little bit deeper into the solution, and then also some like go to market strategies or a little bit more, because it's a relatively straightforward idea that I think you can pitch and get through and get a little bit more. But it's definitely making improvement every week.
All right, thank you.
Well, I liked it. I liked not to go against Nick, but it kept me engaged, walking back and forth. You had a cockiness to you, which I liked, which you really have to have if you're convincing people to either use your service or give you money, right? I like the slowness and the pace of the tone that you had. It seemed like each word was pretty deliberate. And then the problem you articulated well. The solution, you articulated what the AI would be able to do in terms of charts, in terms of providing that data in a more seamless and democratic way. And I think I would have been interested after the 2-minute pitch to learn more. Good job.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, great work.
Do I get a Techstars clap?
Did we not already do it? Sorry, I was so excited. Sorry, bro.
Okay, so before we this isn't part of the pitch. So this Thursday, my startup actually made it to the top 4 for Disrupt Texas. There, we're doing the pitch at the AT&T Center. So if you guys want to come and watch us get first place, feel free. But I'll start with my pitch now. Ready, set, go. Okay, imagine coming home after a long day of work to find a pile of dirty dishes, an overflowing trash can, and an empty Brita. For most college students, especially in our digital generation, the awkwardness of having to confront your roommate is far greater than the actual mess itself, usually resulting in students shouldering the burden alone, or leaving it for the next person. The current task management and productivity apps make a $53 billion market. We have Asana for businesses, Canvas for schools, and Notion for individual productivity. But what about for roommates? None of these apps are suitable for a simple task creation and a reminder system that most college roommates are looking for. And this is why I built Bobo to do just that, so you can forget the awkward reminders or the passive-aggressive nudges. We've seen the power of discounts. We've seen the power of discounts through the explosive success of Honey, but we can go a step further. If we see that a roommate is consistently doing their dishes every day, we can provide a personalized discount, like, congrats, because you did your dishes 10 times, here's a 50% discount coupon on this organic dish soap, right? And this makes the users feel like they've genuinely earned this reward, making the deal even more irresistible and helping us tap into the billion-dollar consumer goods market. We're currently in talks with the American Campus Network to make Bobo part of the move-in protocol because we know that a good roommate experience often leads to extended stays and lease renewals. We're currently in beta testing with 53 active users, and our plan is to launch on January 6th, the start of the new semester, in UT Austin, NYU, UCLA, and UIUC. This is Bobo, where we help roommates be better roommates.
Excellent. I mean, you've made so much progress since the first week, and I'm excited to hear about your victory on Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you.
More than anything, I think all it is from here is just continuing to practice and find your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I think you're still going. Yeah, exactly. It's easy. You're comfortable up here. This is your home. You're up here all the time now. And yeah, and just getting comfortable with it. I think just slowing down a little bit, especially if you feel like you're getting nervous, you're gonna need to think like you're talking even slower, And so, but I really think you've got a good pitch. We talked earlier about, if you can really explain why Notion specifically, or one like the individual project management softwares aren't good for this. I think that's going to make it a little better. You could also throw in some engagement metrics of like out of the 53 users, how many people are using it every week, every day. And then I'm also curious, out of 53, like how many roommate matches is that, right? So because it's really kind of your unit is like a group of roommates that are all using it, right?
Yeah.
All right, but great job. I'm super excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, equally. Great job. Just a few questions that come to mind is what's the pathway to monetization?
So we initially had a beta service where people paid $1 per month, but because our audience is college roommates, we stopped doing that. And the special discount, if we get a 5% commission rate, while we facilitate just 0.01% of these purchases, we could earn up to $50,000 per month. And these are all on a conservative measurement. So these special discounts, and I know I've been up here for a little too long, but because our audience is college students, we can have partnerships with companies like Headspace. If it's finals week, there can be a special task that appears sponsored by Headspace saying take a 15-minute relaxation break. And when students complete that task, they get a discount on the Headspace subscription, and it promotes both wellness and brand engagement for partnering companies.
Okay, and how do you confirm that you're giving them the discount for a legit action versus they just download the app and say they clean dishes and get the discount?
So that's a problem we're going to figure out as we launch our app. Currently, we're in beta testing, so we're not there yet. But that's with the network effect of a lot of Bo becoming the standard tool for roommates. That's a path we're trying to go to.
Okay. Yeah, I like it, and I think one thing that's really helpful is that the best person to create a service like this is a college student who experiences this.
Yeah, in my script, I actually had that written, but I forgot to say it because I was nervous. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you got one more? All right, come on down. Last but not least.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Manav. Very nice to meet you guys. Last to go. So I guess I'll get right into it. I want to start with this. I think throughout history, we've always framed AI as something to race towards getting, right? It's as soon as a company or a person or an organization finds AI, we get complete Skynet, they have the full advantage, we instantly go into an age of prosperity. But if you take a look at real life right now, that's not what's happening in the slightest. In fact, we have ChatGPT available to me, you, every single person in this audience, and people in every single country across the entire world. And so what does that mean? It means that in the age of AI, the real winners are going to be the people that actually use the tools at their peak potential. Enterprises, they're going to need to have real systems and standard operating processes that help them to do the work that they need to and get the productivity gains that AI has markedly been saying ever since its inception. So what does that mean for a company? That means that I'm going to be working with enterprises to help them build out the AI-driven standard operating procedures, such as marketing functions such as cold email, paid advertisement, LinkedIn outreach, and things like that, helping organizations really see hours and hours of gain on every single day's worth of time, helping employees work on higher leverage tasks, become more creative, decrease operational drag, and end up increasing your margins because of a higher output with your employees' same amount of time. And that means that enterprises can finally take a step forward into an age of real, reasoned automation with a logical AI fine-tuned on their specific inputs and specific organizational procedures. what that means that these companies can finally see the market AI operational efficiency gain that's been marketed ever since the history. So at the end of the day, that's what enterprises need. Systems building with a way to help them see those gains. And that's what I aim to do.
All right, good work. So this is one of the maybe counterintuitive things I've learned about pitching. It's you have a solution that is very broadly applicable, right, to enterprises at large. And when you talk about, you know, very broad solutions like that, it can be hard for people to really crystallize the idea in their head. And really starting narrow and then letting them expand is a better focus. So I would encourage you to find a very specific use case, even a very specific company. Could be, you know, something that's from the news, and tell a story about that company and that industry with those employees and how they are going to implement this, you know, on a just a single basis. And then, like, towards the end of your pitch, you might be, oh, and if it works for real estate companies, we also, you know, can expand into XYZ or you know, just give some type of specific use case, and then it's a lot easier for people to extrapolate out from there of the other use cases. So I think that's would be my suggestion is, you know, narrow it in, you know, kind of, yeah, like dial in a couple benefits that a specific enterprise can get, and then kind of expand it from there. And it's definitely tricky with what you're doing.
You know, if I can address that same concern, like I had this part of my head completely mismentioning it. I've been in talks with the Canadian government to do this for their business development department. So very specifically for them, I built a LinkedIn outreach SOP that helps them go from, I think it was 50 minutes per reach out all the way down to just 5 minutes per prospect. So I like 10x their outreach potential with literally just one standard operating procedure. So
right. So kind of start with that,
Definitely.
and then, you know, you can kind of build out from there a little bit. But yeah, that also just builds your credibility that you're working with the great country Canada.
no maple syrup though.
Yeah, so I think the delivery was good. I mean, I think Nick's spot on. If you're saying, you know, my service is for all enterprises, you know, people are going to be silly if you go to them and say, hey, my total acquirable market is, what is it, 20 trillion or something. It's like, come on. But if you're saying you're a B2G product, that you're targeting governments and you're going to assist them because they're outdated, that's something that's more feasible for someone to understand and quantify what the ROI would be, right?
Is that one of those breathing devices, the monitors?
So my neighbor made a startup. It's called Moksha.
Yeah.
They have the breathing tool. This was their first beta product from like 2018.
Right, cool. Yeah, I've talked to him before. I've never seen one in person though. Yep, I think it's really cool. Do you have the app?
Not anymore because this one isn't Bluetooth enabled.
Oh, you got to get the Bluetooth enabled one.
This was the first product they ever made. It was like the one they were pitching VCs with.
Yeah.
When they were with Republic, so that was something.
What's the founder's name again?
Jamin.
Jamin, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Super cool. Thanks everyone.
Cool. Oh, we have one more? All right, yep, no worries, one more.
Hello. Hi, my name is Yumna. Fashion is so much more than just the clothing you wear on your body. It's about how you feel, how you look, and even how you're perceived by the world. However, with the inconsistency and abundance of trends, the lack of standardization of sizing within the fashion industry, and even your own evolving style over time, Style AI is here to be your constant, using established methodology behind styling, such as sizing with the Gibbs body type test, color theory for colors that look good on you, and a style quiz. Style AI can address your style, sizing, and clothing needs, and also generate pieces that complement you the best. So Style AI is going to be like a website that uses AI to generate pieces, taking all of those facets into account using AI. So step into the power of your style with my Style AI.
Awesome closing. I like the closing a lot. So it's I think I understand the solution where you could probably make this a little better is by like drilling in on the problem a little bit more. And style is such a complex problem, and there's a lot of layers to it. I think as deep into the emotions you can get, the more you'll pull people in and like make them care about this. And because it's your style influences a lot of things, and
So I originally wanted to basically make the AI version of Stitch Fix, and the original problem that I was kind of trying to solve was the lack of standardization of sizing within the fashion industry, because even within fashion brands themselves, if you go buy jeans from Levi's, right? You might be a size, one size in one style of jeans, but another size in another style, and it's coming from the same manufacturer. So that's kind of the first issue that I wanted to address, but then I just started kind of getting ahead of myself and thinking of all the issues within the fashion industry. So
Right.
would you recommend starting there?
Yeah, I think digging into that that specific sizing issue is important, and also it's just and because people generally the size is a very personal decision, and they don't want it to look different than they expect, right? And I think and you could probably dig in on a few other ones, and then the ultimate outcome that they're looking for, right? It's I want to dress to either feel comfortable, to have people look at me, have people not make fun of me, whatever it is, and but you can kind of get into some of those topics, and the more you can pull on the heartstrings, the more people will really I think be ready for your solution. So, but yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the same thing is that, maybe sizing is one of them, but when I think of this solution, I think it's a great solution for me who I don't want to have to Google, cool tech guy outfits or something and then use that as inspiration. Whereas if I can just put some variables into your software and you give me suggestions, I think that's a huge solution that you're solving for. I like the idea. I would probably say the delivery could be better, just more prepared, less looking at the phone. And just with that, that's one thing that, for investors and maybe customers too, they'll feel more assured, helping you believing that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, if at the very least you nail the 2-minute presentation, right?
All right, practice makes perfect. All right, great work. All right, well, we'll get started. Want to invite Matthew from Fetty on up, and we're going to get mic'd up here, and Aaron's coming over. I got to dispose of my mess I made earlier, and we'll have a little chat. Just hold this for a second. We already outed him as an Aggie. We already outed you as an Aggie. Testing. Well, you speaking to this one? This is just for the podcast. We're kind of recording both, but yeah, this is the one that is the house audio that they're hearing.
Cool. Very cool.
And you kind of gotta get it close to, you gotta talk close like this. But
Awesome.
Well, we have quite a treat. Who's ridden in a Fetty before?
Cool. Awesome. Perfect.
It's not bad. You got a little improvement. A few people need to learn. Maybe on the way home. Has anybody ridden in a Fetty to class before?
To class. All right, that's a new one. Yeah. Get lit on the way to class. I like it.
Yeah, y'all should take Fetties down to the Capital Factory. But anyways, this is not quite a Fetty commercial. So, but Matthew, welcome to Longhorn Startup and back to Capital Factory.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we just established a second ago that you did attend a different school, the Texas A&M University, but you're living here in Austin. How about, take us back before you started Fetty and, kind of what led to starting this venture?
Yeah, so I think always, it's always the question that people ask, why someone does what they do, or why someone starts a company, why someone wants to, achieve certain things. And that's, I think, a deep psychological question that we are all asking ourselves, and I continue to ask myself as well. But for whatever reason, I wanted to make something that I think people like to use, made a difference, and I think could propel me to achieve certain goals that I want to in this life. And so that was kind of the thing that I was always looking for. And so prior to Fetty, which Fetty I started senior year in college, so prior to that, there was a couple ventures I tried. For example, one of them was a roadside assistance company. So that's kind of just digitalizing and creating a more efficient solution for roadside assistance.
Were you in college or in high school?
Yeah, I was in college.
Got it.
This was still in college. And just kind of understood, and I'll give you an example. So what I thought is we could create a better website or a better, or even an app where if you needed roadside assistance, you could simply go to it. We'd find it's a marketplace set up where somebody who has the knowledge gets a ping. Hey, someone in your area needs a tire change. Go ahead. Both people, that person makes money. The person's tire gets fixed in a relatively quick time. And so I was out there trying to make this thing work, changing people's tires, getting more data, first through a website, creating SEO, all this different stuff, and came to the realization that this business is so infrequent for a person that they're not going to have an app on their phone for something that happens maybe once a month, if that, right? Or it's just something that wasn't high frequency, high utilized, to where it happens so rarely that they'll just take their chances and Google roadside assistance near me and find someone, right? So we never really found product market fit. Another thing that I try to do was a product that was a portable charger for phones, where you could order a package with about 5 of these mini devices that you would put into your phone. They already came pre-charged, so in an emergency, plug it into your phone, get 50% of battery, and then you throw it away. Never really found product market fit in that. Kept on trying on that. So that's just to explain kind of the background of the journey of eventually getting to Fetty, that it wasn't one day I woke up and said, hey, let me try transportation, and it worked, and I'm just the best entrepreneur to ever do it, and I'm so good. The thing is, if you keep on throwing your darts, eventually something's going to hit. Eventually you're going to run into something that people want to use and want to experience. And so that's probably my biggest thing, is that because I was looking for opportunities, opportunity came to me, if that makes sense.
What turned you on to entrepreneurship and really inspired you to go start that first roadside assistance company?
I think a couple things. I mean, one thing is that my father was an entrepreneur, and so from the get-go, I was already exposed to kind of this different way of life, where it wasn't the standard, you go through elementary, middle school, high school, college, you work for a company, maybe you work for a startup, then you go build a company, hopefully, or you work your way up. From the get-go, I mean, even my father didn't really encourage me to go to college, so already the normalization of today's society was broken in my eyes, so it's kind of anything's possible. So to me, I thought, okay, well, building a company sounds good, sounds fun, which it's not as fun as you would think.
Not always fun.
And I think that's one big thing that led me to do it, was kind of having that foresight to know that it is an option, because a lot of people aren't really even aware that it is an option. They think there's no way that I could start a company. I mean, it's only the rich of the rich start them, or the well-connected or well-networked, which really isn't true. And then the other part of it, I think, for me, is kind of you wanna create a life that I think doesn't get doesn't get lost in the chaos of the world and the life, and whether that's in a local, city, state, national, global scale. I think everyone here, especially given where you are right now and the country that you're in, have a big opportunity to at least attempt to build something or start something that I think has a huge impact. So I think that was one thing for me.
Yeah, that's great. And so it sounds like your dad was an entrepreneur, and that really made it feel attainable.
Yeah.
And I was the other way. I never really even knew it was an option, and not even people in my community. You know, it wasn't something. And moving down here to go to UT, you know, it was just kind of hits you in the face, like all these people doing interesting things, and you know, mentors trying to support you and all that. So, but it's this pathway for like purpose for your life, and like really, you know, just like, which is more valuable than any amount of money you could really make, is like, I want to do something unique and special with, you know, my time here.
Exactly. And one thing too is I always like to think that it had some sort of effect, but growing up, I always liked reading fantasy books. So whether it was Harry Potter, or Percy Jackson, or Aragon, or a lot of these different fantasy
Harry Potter
books. Guy. In my eyes, it was always like, when I'm looking at this book, I always wanted to be the hero, the main protagonist, the main character. It's whenever somebody, you know, oh, who's your favorite character in Harry Potter? It astounded me when someone would say Ron, or when someone would say, you know, anybody other than the hero of it. And so I think one thing that any entrepreneur needs is the desire or the confidence to actually believe that they can be a hero in some sense.
Yeah, totally. All right, and then how did you end up starting Fetty?
Yeah, so my senior year, I had about 3 classes left at A&M. Typically, your senior year, you've kind of gone through most of your credits and you're just wrapping things up. I was going to go into private equity or investment banking, and just getting prepared for that. I had a lot of time on my hands. And so, happenstance, I was on Facebook Marketplace, and I saw 2 students looking to sell a party bus business. And it was just one bus. They only had one bus at A&M. It was a shuttle bus, 15 passengers or 30 passengers. And what was interesting is that they were charging their customers $5 per person cash to get them typically from a pregame, a house party, to Northgate, the bar area there. And they had repeat customers. People were using them maybe not every week, but maybe once a month.
That was one of the lessons you learned from the earlier visits.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
The frequency.
Exactly. And so I looked more into it. I thought it was really interesting. And one thing that was interesting about it was that these people were utilizing this service because they wanted to ride together, and there really wasn't a viable option other than paying these 2 students $5 each to go to the bars or a sorority event, a fraternity event, an org event, or even dinner, whatever it may be. The reason being is that either one option they had was to split up the group and take 2, 3, 4 Ubers or Lyfts, or reserve a party bus days or weeks in advance, pay a 3 to 5 hour minimum, not $5 per person, but a 3 to 5 hour minimum for maybe a 15-minute ride. And no flexibility where you're not paying the $5 per cash at the door, which is what they were doing. Instead, you're putting a down deposit and an arm and a leg and hoping everyone pays you back. And so at that point, I thought it was something that would be a good side business, and that we could digitalize it. They didn't have a website. They were doing everything through text messages on a business phone. It was amateur, but it seemed like just having the business savvy that I did, I could easily just come in, get my partner who's the tech guy, help build out a website, payment system, do some good marketing, just properly create an infrastructure, then go out, hire a manager. They themselves were driving the buses, so hire drivers, hire a manager, and just have something that while I'm going on and doing the next part, either in my career or a bigger business, something that's just growing or just producing cash flow for me. Obviously, that's not what ended up happening. But from there, we purchased it. I was driving these buses every weekend trying to figure out how the business worked. And eventually we created the website. We started having the payment systems. We had to take cash out of the equation because to scale any company, you can't have cash flying around. We would have drivers who were stealing some of the cash. We were having, just a lot of different difficulties, and so we incorporated digitalized payment structures that eventually led to the QR codes that y'all are familiar with, and just fine-tuned and optimized the business to what it is today.
So interesting. So you were able to really, you had started at least 2 ventures in college and had, built this business acumen and understanding and just some of these basics that you all are learning today. And then you saw this opportunity and it was like, oh wait, they're not doing all this stuff, simple stuff. And you were able to go, use those lessons from your first 2 ventures to really get Fetty off the ground.
Exactly. What's interesting is I never quit on any of the prior business ventures. It always transitioned to where I saw a better opportunity.
Evolution.
Yeah, evolution, which is interesting. So I never, in retro, in hindsight, obviously it wasn't a good idea, but with the roadside assistance, I never said, okay, this isn't gonna work, let me try something else. It was, all right, we're working on this, but now this other opportunity came up that I think is better, and just naturally we started focusing on that. Mm-hmm. And then with the chargers, this came along, and then naturally we started focusing on that. Where once, if you keep on doing that, eventually you hit something that you realize, all right, there's probably nothing better than this, and I've hit kind of this gold mine. And then I would say that I was very blessed to run into this opportunity because I came into a business that already gave me the validation that customers wanted this type of service. So product market fit to an extent was already proven, and I think that's one thing that really helped me, and it's probably the hardest in any business, is getting your first 100 customers. Mm-hmm. If you can create an operation that's providing a service or a business already to someone, at that point you're just evolving it, fine-tuning it, figuring out ways that it can scale and grow into more colleges, more cities, which is a lot easier than building that initial foundation.
And when was this you purchased the business?
This was 2019.
2019. And how long were you just in College Station?
So we were in there for a year.
For a year?
For a year. It was running this party bus company. And then after a year, probably after 6-7 months, we were beginning development of the app, of the application, because we wanted to make it into an application. The convenience of rideshare like Uber and Lyft, but with these high capacity vehicles. And then probably at that 12-month mark, our beta was ready, launched it out, complete disaster, app did not work at all. I remember I was driving the bus and for reference, my partner was in California at the time, and he was building the app, building all the technology, and he told me, all right, the developer said it's good to go. This is the first weekend. Let's give it a shot. And so we do some marketing already to our existing customers, so it was really easy. Hey, download the app. This is the new way to order these buses. The first group, I think it was a sorority group. I show up in the bus. They pull out the app. They scan the QR code. This like really ratchet-looking error code shows up, and it just did not work. And so they asked me, they said, hey, did it work? I'm getting this error code. And I said, yep, it worked. Hop on in. And everyone gets in. We lost money on that ride, obviously, because we did not get any payment. But then after 2 or 3 weeks fixing those bugs, then we started to get some money coming in.
Save the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep the customers happy. Cool. And who's the coolest person that's ridden in a Fetty, to your knowledge, besides me?
We've had the mayor of Austin ride. We've had Vince Young ride.
Ooh.
Jason Kidd has ridden. If you know Danny Duncan,
two-turn Tony, if you know these influencer guys. But probably at this stage, it's tough. Unless they post it on social media, there's so many trips and passengers that maybe there's some cooler people that I haven't seen on the back end yet.
Yeah, I bet. And then you did Y Combinator, right?
Oh.
And what led to that? And yeah, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so what led to that is that we really needed money. We were burning a lot of cash with driver incentives. We launched in Austin. We launched in Lubbock with Texas Tech, and in order to kind of enter these markets, we burn cash for about 4 to 5 months, and then the market turns profitable. And so we had kind of overextended ourselves, but rightly so. We needed growth, but that led to needing cash, and so we applied 2 times. We applied 2 times, didn't get in both those times. We applied a 3rd time, and finally got in, which, if you're not familiar, it's an accelerator. They've invested in Cruise, Instacart, DoorDash, Dropbox, a lot of these big San Franciscan household name companies. Airbnb as well. And in our batch, which is kind of the batch of acceptance groups, it was a 1.25% acceptance rate. So companies from all around the world are trying to get in there. Obviously the network is huge, and then they do come with $500,000 check.
And what did you learn through the application process of, anything that by the end of it you're like, oh, that really helped us in our application?
Yeah, I think one of the things that helped was the ability to execute a concise pitch. You really have a short amount of time, similar to what happened just prior with the 2-minute pitches. And what that does, it forces you to be deliberate in what you're saying and forthcoming in terms of what the problem, the solution, why you're the person for the solution, and what the investor or what the accelerator in this situation can expect from a huge success. So I think that's one of the biggest things. Granted, the first time we applied was during COVID, so I don't blame them for not believing in group transportation during COVID. Second time was a year after, or 6 months, or a year after COVID, which I still don't blame them for not knowing if things are going to be back to normal. Third time, they were like, all right, let's just give these guys a chance.
Nice. So a lot about the pitch.
Yeah.
And a lot of entrepreneurs are like, oh my gosh, why don't they give us longer to pitch? And I'm just like, dude, opportunity, important people that are making decisions, they don't have a lot of time, and you gotta be able to communicate it simply and quickly, and that's like the hardest thing to do, right? And if you had an hour, it'd be a lot easier, but it's hard to get anyone's attention for an hour. Okay, and then what was the program like once you got was it in person or?
It was hybrid. So they had some events that we went into in Sonoma and in San Francisco. But I was really, because typically prior to COVID, it was in person. So you would have to go there for 3 months. They give you money to use part of the $500,000 to live there and whatnot. And it was we were really lucky to have that hybrid style because we had this operation here that we had to run. And so that's another thing too, is that we're one of the few Y Combinator companies that isn't a pure software company. Typically the reason why they make people go live out there is because they're typically software companies that can be worked on from remote from anywhere. So yeah, it was a hybrid. It was a good experience. Met a lot of great people. The people they put you in contact with and network you with are no jokes. People who have built multi-billion-dollar companies, who have invested in multi-billion-dollar companies, who if you say, hey, can you connect me with the Uber co-founder, they've got them on their phone texting. So that's probably one of the biggest things, is that, if you need something, that they can probably know someone or know someone who knows someone.
How'd your demo day go?
It was good. So from that, we raised about a 1.5 additional. So for the whole Y Combinator experience, we took in about $2 million, which we needed to expand, build out our operations, and kind of transition the business into a more scalable operation. which is what has resulted now. So I would say it was good. That's one thing that they're also known for, is that having that YC name behind your company legitimizes you a lot, separates you. Like I said, it's a 1.25% acceptance rate. They've got a lot of billion-dollar companies that they've essentially were the very first investors in. And so once you've got that name behind you, you can go to investors, and they're, at least the partners are going to take a meeting with you, because they're going to be interested, because, hey, if YC saw something, there might be something there.
And have you raised any more money since then?
We're putting together another $2 million raise. 500,000 of that is equity. 1.5 is debt. We've started to mess with debt a lot more, because we've kind of fine-tuned what our go-to-market strategy and costs are. So we know if we take this 1.5, it'll allow us to open in 4 or 5 new markets, at which point after 4 to 5 months, we turn profitable and can pay back the monthly costs on that debt, which saves us equity, less dilution, and is more readily available in this market.
So let's talk about the scalability and how you're financing your growth. And you have a lot of vans, right?
Yeah.
And are they your vans, or do you?
So good
leasing
question.
them,
Yeah,
or-
we don't own any vans.
You don't own any vans.
No.
What about that first van? You just
Oh yeah, the bus. Yeah,
You
the
got
buses.
that guy?
No, well, we ended up selling them to an operator who puts them on our platform. So
Oh, nice.
Yeah, not even those we own anymore. And so that's kind of one of the things that I was touching up on is once you kind of get your customers and figure out if you have a business or not, then you can start fine tuning things to make it either investable or just scalable. And so, for example, at the beginning, we own these buses while trying to build the app, work on marketing. During the week, my week would be packed, because I had to take these buses to the mechanic shop, right? I mean, we were driving them everywhere. These were old buses that we couldn't afford nice vans like we do now, and it was just this whole operation where we were doing ops, managing drivers, dealing with insurance, all this different stuff, while trying to be a software company as well, trying to be a platform. And so what we did is we said, okay, we need to distance ourselves from this aspect of the business, and we created something called a PSP program, Passenger Service Provider Program. It's a similar model we took to Amazon's DSP program, Delivery Service Partner Program, in which we work with these entities who either already have these type of vehicles that we need, or want to get involved in a business with us, almost like a franchise. And so they'll purchase these vehicles. They'll take care of the driver management, the insurance, the vehicle cost, the financing, everything like that. And then they'll just put it on our platform. They earn a percentage of the revenue plus a rental fee from the drivers. We earn a percentage of the revenue. And they essentially take care of that whole side of the business while we just work on the platform. And for a startup, that's incredibly important, because we don't have the funds to go out and hire managers for each city in terms of watching over all of the vehicles, hiring people to go take them to the mechanic shop, dealing with the cost of insurance, a lot of these different things. And so we knew that in order for this to be scalable, especially with the funds we had to be savvy and create a model where we're taking a lot of those costs out of the situation. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about having to bootstrap. Because maybe if I could raise money very easily, we would have never run into that, because we didn't need to. Maybe we would still own these vans. It would be millions and millions of dollars on the balance sheet in terms of liability. Our insurance would be 100 times more. We'd have to deal with people with the dealing with everything that comes with drivers not showing up, or liability claims, or all this different stuff. But because we didn't have the funds, we needed to figure out a way to kind of make it more scalable for us. And so we don't own any of the vans right now. We work with our partners who purchase these fleets, and it's been a very good outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. It just takes a lot of risk out of the
Right.
equation, and uncertainty of, this van might not work.
And it allows us to focus on the software, which,
Right.
if we're going to be successful, it needs our full focus.
Right. Then how about the drivers? Are they your drivers, or how do you have that set up?
Yeah, so they're contracted out by the PSPs.
Okay, so
Yeah, so they're contracted out. They pay a weekly rental fee to the PSP for their van, and they earn money on our platform much more than they would with Uber and Lyft, just because of the nature of the business. And so, our driver turn, which in the rideshare industry is unheard of, is our retention rate is probably 95% with drivers.
Wow. And is it, I guess, how many of these, you call them PSPs?
Mm-hmm.
How many PSPs do you have? And I guess how many, are they just servicing you, or how do they handle other business?
So they're just servicing us. They're just
yeah.
putting their vehicles on our platform. In total, I would probably say we have about maybe closing in on 30 PSPs.
Yeah.
But some PSPs have 2 vans.
Got it.
Some have 25.
Got it.
Right. So it's pretty diverse in that sense.
But if I wanted to go buy some vans and like start one of these companies, we could talk. And
Exactly.
Potentially.
Yeah, yeah. And we've seen these people put together, these high net worth individuals, look at the opportunity, finance some vehicles, put them on our platform, and generate cash flow like that.
We could maybe all go in on one.
Longhorn Startup PSP. There you go.
Yeah.
We actually had some recent UT grads become PSPs.
Really?
They've got vans in the Austin market and the Baton Rouge market. And they're closing on maybe like 10 vehicles now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. And how did you get connected with Capital Factory?
So after College Station, we really figured this was a company that could be replicated. And at that point, it was up to us to decide where do we want to build this company, either San Francisco or Austin. San Francisco, too expensive, further away from everything in our current operations, and so we chose Austin. Came here to Austin. First thing we did is start meeting with investors, which led us to the introduction of Capital Factory. Got connected with y'all, joined y'all, which has been a huge blessing and a great success in our eyes. And we've one of our best advisors has come through an introduction that Capital Factory did, Joseph Kopser.
Oh yeah.
One of our board directors, very influential with Capital Factory, Brian Manel. So a lot of these people were connected to us through Capital Factory, and I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, we were just 2 kids, didn't know anybody, and once we joined Capital Factory, we had the ability to start knowing people in Austin and around Texas.
Yeah, Joseph Kopser had a transportation startup of his own back in the day.
Yeah, Joseph, he sold his mobility platform for $100 million to Mercedes in 2012, 14, around there, maybe 14. And so when we heard about that, we said, well, this is the perfect person for us to, exchange ideas with and get mentorship from. So we got a meeting through Capital Factory with him, and the rest is history.
Yep. Joseph, when he started Ride Scout, which was originally called Going My Way, he was the professor of military science at UT. And he actually is an Army veteran and went to West Point and learned all about logistics in the military, and then created this app to help people figure out their logistics downtown. And he is also our advisor, one of our top advisors, special advisors at Capital Factory, helping us figure out our defense vertical and a lot of the stuff going on this floor. So, very nice. All right, and where are you going next? You mentioned you're raising a little money. Like, what are the big milestones you're focused on the next 12, 24 months?
Yeah, I think the name of the game is just national domination. It's making sure that every group around the country has this service at their disposal. So right now we're in Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, College Station, Lubbock, Baton Rouge, and Tuscaloosa. And starting off at College Station, we had hopes that it could be replicated. We had a good go-to-market strategy, and we found in Austin that it could be replicated, and it was successful. And so at that point, it was just going city to city. We know now what our costs are to enter into a market. We know how much money we need, how much we will need to burn. So we've got we've got good data to kind of help us make these informed decisions of how much we need to raise, whether it be debt or equity, to expand into new markets, and that's really what we're focused on 100% right now. We're always working on new features, on new things, but it's important not to get too distracted with, let's add this really cool because we've got some really nice features that we want to add that I think would be phenomenal and really get people talking. But we have the ability to refrain from that and understand what we've built right now is solving a problem for a lot of people, and we need to get this out to as many people as we can. Once we've kind of reached a good scale where we're in, a lot, if not all, of the major cities, plus a lot of the college towns, then we can start playing around with different ideas and adding new features and whatnot. But we're soon entering, and I think the milestone is really entering into that state where we don't need to raise anymore, where the cash flow from operations is just fueling new market launches, which I think after this new expansion come January, we'll be in a pretty close position to do that. And we haven't announced it yet, but I'll announce it here. In January, we're launching in Houston. We're launching in Tucson with Arizona,
Cool.
University of Arizona. We're launching in Phoenix and Scottsdale with ASU, and just a huge city there, and potentially throwing in Athens and Atlanta in Georgia.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Are you got to send boots on the ground to the market, or how do you do that?
What's really fun too is that typically our boots on the ground are our PSPs.
Right.
So they're out there helping, they're out there hiring the drivers, they're out there doing some marketing work for us, and then we've got our ambassador army that goes out there as well and does a lot of the work for us. And so that just goes to my point, figuring out efficient ways to do this without, if I want to launch in one market, not only do I have to worry about the cost of the operation, but now I've got to hire 5 people and add them to payroll. It's always about finding these things to make things more efficient.
Yep.
And,
Did you know I was at Favor? It was my first job.
I did,
yeah. And so we had a people-intensive business like you, and people, similar partners were individuals, but it was we had boots on the ground. I was a market launcher and would go to these different cities, and it was much like we were talking a lot like this, and we launched 10 or 20 cities outside of Texas, and our burn was too high and we couldn't compete. And after we launched all these cities, we had to go shut them all down, which was not the fun part. And we had, overnight, thousands of delivery runners didn't have jobs anymore, employees laid off, and it was just too capital intensive to go, compete for $5 a pop on a delivery run, and it was really hard. And luckily, we were first to market in Texas. And we did very well here, and we didn't have nearly as much competition. And for us, it was like Texas has not nearly as much congestion, like the less traffic. This was 10 years ago. Relatively less traffic, parking's easier, and so we did well here and sold. But it sounds like you've got this really efficient scaling where you don't have to really build employees, but you can have partners and stuff that's a little easier to ramp up and down based on the demand.
Certainly, and it's also identifying things in the fundamental nature of the business that are efficient as well. And I'll give you an example. One reason why this company is such a great company to build is because if you think about the nature of group transportation, when I spend money to convert one customer, I'm also converting 10, 11, 12 who also experience the service. And so that customer acquisition cost goes a lot down, whereas Uber, Lyft, or Instacart, whenever you convert one customer, only that one customer for the most time uses that service. And so that's been a big thing where, because of that virality aspect to group transportation, if I convince you, Nick, to try out this service, I'm also convincing 8 of your friends to try it because you convinced them. So that word of mouth and that exponential virality led to that exponential week over week growth, which just made our job so much easier, where we weren't having to say, okay, we need to raise $1 million and $500,000 of that has to go to Facebook ads or Instagram ads to get customers, right? And so that's one thing that made it very efficient. Another thing too is that our vehicles are branded. So we've got these free rolling billboards running around town, right? That we don't have to, if there was a service that charged that type of advertisement, we'd be bankrupt, right? And so it's a lot of these different things that really helped make this company doable, especially with the funds that we had.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and open it up to some questions from students. I'm thankful I don't get to pick tonight because Matt's gonna walk around. And yeah, we got plenty of time. So, all right, you want water? I've got some.
So in terms of target market and your customer base, it deals a lot with college students and like drinking. How do you think that's affected your like brand image and your ability to raise funding and just all that sort of?
Yeah, very good question. At the beginning of the, especially when we started going out to investors and pitching them, you don't want to go to them and say, hey, this is just for college students to get to the bars, even though that's really what it was. We would go to them and say, hey, this is getting people, either a night out or commuting, right, or off-site corporate transportation. We weren't really doing that at that point then, but to investors, especially investors who, they're looking a lot of times nowadays for B2B software or for something that is more than just a college market. So in the beginning of those days, we really strayed away from it. Even our website, our social media was very more corporate, until we realized that, whether we said it was for enterprises or whether we said it was because at the beginning of this, we really couldn't raise that much money. It was friends and family. We had party buses. You go to a VC and say, hey, I've got party buses. Do you want to invest? They're going to laugh you out the room, which they were to us. And so we kind of made that decision just to lean in on it, right? Like this is what our service is being used for. This is what people like about it. We're gonna target essentially our target market, and that's one thing that I think has really allowed us to grow and kind of have this brand image that we have, right? I think Uber is looked at as a lot more corporate, almost like the Facebook now, like an older, out of touch company, which is great for kind of that demographic if their employees need transportation or whatever. But we're kind of looked at like that younger, more fun kind of guy who if you want to have a good time, you take a Fetty, right? And so I think that's important to understand that you never want to tailor your business toward an investor. You're always going to find success if you tailor your business toward the customer. And now we do plenty. We do weddings, we do bachelorette parties, we do off-site corporate events. We actually do it now, and that's just a result of the word of mouth that's come primarily from the college market. And we've embraced it. And if you think about it, while the market of individual people outside of college is much greater, the college market has a much higher frequency, if that makes sense, where college students aren't going out once a month, maybe for a bachelorette party or an off-site corporate event. You guys are going out once a week, right? Sometimes using Fetty 3 times a night, right? Whereas these older people, let's just agree, they're pretty boring and they're not in the Fetty spirit all the time. So I think that's a big thing that's allowed us to grow and scale, is just accepting that nature.
It seems like it would eliminate a lot of drunk driving too, or it's before.
Oh yeah. And we always say it, and we really do mean it, is that we're removing a lot of drunk driving and we're creating these phenomenal experiences. Sometimes we miss the mark, sometimes a van is late, sometimes, which always going to happen, but we're always working on. But for the most part, you're getting to where you need to go with your friends. And it's just creating that experience, which in today's day is a huge part of our economy, whether it's Airbnb, improving the experience of homestaying or home sharing. We're doing the same thing with transportation, where I've seen a lot of feedback where part of the night experience now is also the Fetty transportation, right? Where it's not just, oh yeah, let's get an Uber and we'll go to the party, and that's the party. Now people are almost, it's an extension of the night, it's an extension of the event, it's an extension of the party, where, hey, the Fetty is here, the party continues. Yeah.
Some of the most fun I've ever had is in a party bus,
Yeah.
those vans, to be honest. Awesome, who's next? It's hard, isn't it, Matt? I usually do this when Josh is here.
I know you briefly talked about like your long-term plan. Companies like YouTube, they say that they were able to get there because they were acquired by Google. Like long-term, are you planning to like go public, or like do you have hopes or plans to like be acquired by like bigger like companies like Google, or what is your like big goal plan at basically?
Yeah, I think that's always, and one thing that whenever investors ask us this, what's in 10 years, what is this going to look like? The answer you give is always going to be BS, because you never know what's coming around the corner. But sitting here, I will tell you that right now we don't have any direct competitors. This is a very hard business to build. It's not a software where you go into your dorm room, you code up some stuff, and all of a sudden you have a platform. Marketplaces, unfortunately, are very hard to build. Fortunately for us, now that we've built it, creates a very strong moat for us, where it's very hard to get into this field. It's not an attractive thing for investors, rideshare at the moment. It was in 2012, 2014, 2018. It isn't right now, so it's harder for people to raise money to even try and compete with us. So we feel very secure in terms of competition. We feel very secure in terms of capital right now, in terms of our go-to-market. So with that being said, I feel very confident that we can grow this to a very close billion-dollar valuation with the current strategies that we have right now, which is just replicating this in as many markets as we can. After that, you start diving into, okay, well, can we start doing advertisements on the app like Uber does? And that's an extra $150 million a year, potentially. Can we start incorporating different social aspects, right? Whether it's a social media type thing or a feed type thing, where we're incorporating the data that we have in terms of Fedi trips and sharing that with your friends or whatnot. Different things like that you start getting into, which fundamentally change the whole type of business that we are. Right now, to his point, our main thing is we're providing young adults, college students, good group transportation. We're also taking care of special events, concerts, sporting events, weddings, bachelorette parties. Maybe it evolves into more of this corporate side that is a huge market as well, with park and ride employee commuting solutions, where we can use our vans as well for companies who want to get their employees to the office together without them having to pay for driving, tolls, gas, all that. There's different ways that this company can go. And I've learned one thing is to let the market dictate where it goes, right? So right now we know what works. We're going to replicate that. We're going to try a few things. I don't see us having to sell it anytime soon. IPO maybe is there if we can incorporate a lot of different things into the business. It would have to be bigger than what it is now. But yeah, it's a nuanced answer, but it's true.
What is the exact cost of going into a new market? Like you mentioned, if you're not buying the buses and all that, what is the exact cost for going into a new market?
For a large metro like DFW or Austin, it's about $400,000.
What does that go into actually though?
It goes into, raise your hand if you've heard of God mode. Okay. So that's one of the things that we use to enter into a new market. It's an account upgrade that we give to people that allows them to ride for discounted or free. And who eats that cost? It's us. So the drivers and the PSPs get paid as if that's real money, but it's coming from us, not the customers. So rider incentives to create word of mouth, and that virality is one thing. The other thing is driver incentives, right? So in a marketplace, if you think about it, whenever you enter into a market, there's no demand and there's no supply yet. So in order to create demand, you need supply. You need at least 10 vans in the city waiting while we build up the demand, right? So because if we go into a new market, we tell you about Fedi, you go onto the app, there's no vans, you're probably not going to try it again. So the driver incentives allow us to pay those drivers to stay on the platform in the city, even if they're not getting paid. So some of the burn is from that. And then it goes the other side as well. So once we've got that supply and we're paying that supply, we need to make sure we're not just wasting money and there's actual demand. So then we put in those rider incentives, those account upgrades, those partnerships, and build that site up. And so over the course of about 4 to 5 months, we're playing this teeter-totter game where we're building up supply, putting money into that, and then we need to chill out. We need to put more money into demand. Then we need to chill out, put more into supply, so that there aren't these huge nuances where nobody can get a ride or there's huge surge pricing. About 4 to 5 months, we reach a level where we can take away all of that. We can start taking away the account upgrades and rider incentives, and we can start taking away because people are going to ride because they like the service, and then we can start taking away the driver incentives because they can just stay online and they're making money. So about 4 to 5 months, we can take those off, and then we're running profitable. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Veer. I'm really excited that you're here because I am involved in a tangentially similar business. So what was your process of developing your go-to-market strategy, and how did you guys implement your ambassador program? Because with our business, we're like a high school parking service. So what we've had trouble with is we had really great success at our first school, but we have had trouble scaling to other markets on the demand side.
Yeah, so remind me the first question.
What was the process of developing your go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, so the go-to-market strategy, the supply we've never had an issue because if we can get the demand, the supply will come. People will want to buy vans because it'll make them money. So it's always, in a lot of marketplaces as well, it's always about the demand. And so how did we create the demand? One thing that's just really easy, that made it really easy in this business is that, like I said, there really just wasn't a good solution for these groups. I mean, raise your hand if you can think of a different option, but either you were splitting up and taking 2 to 3 Ubers, Lyfts, or more, or personal vehicles, or you had to make sure you reserved a party bus days or weeks in advance, pay a 3 to 5 hour minimum with no payment flexibility. Like there really wasn't a good solution, and that's one of the things why it's been so successful, is that we're really disrupting. We're not looking at a business and just trying to create a bigger version of that business. We're creating a new business entirely. And so your go-to-market strategy is going to be a lot easier if it's a real problem that needs solving, because essentially at that point it's just making people aware of it, and the rest does the job, and word of mouth is a huge aspect of it. Now, actual strategies that we did a lot of it really is this God mode thing we did. So the idea came after I watched the Fire Festival documentary. Raise your hand if you're familiar with Fire Fest. Okay, it was essentially this concert that this guy, Billy McFarland, put together. That was a disaster, but the marketing was phenomenal. It was a disaster because the marketing was phenomenal and demand was outrageous. And the way they did it is that they got these very famous celebrities and influencers to all post an Instagram picture at the same exact time of an orange box. Literally just an orange box. Plain orange with Firefest tagged. So at a certain time and day, all these celebrities did it. Hailey Bieber, it was a lot of big people. And these people who follow all these accounts, if you follow Hailey Bieber, you follow this other model, it was all interconnected, was scrolling through their feed, and all of a sudden all these orange boxes were showing up. And people were clicking on it, what is this? And it garnered attention. And what I took from that is that people really want to be involved in what other people of higher status are involved with. So we were going to do something like that locally at our college, and we thought, okay, who are the influential trendsetters, whatever you want to call them, at our colleges that go out a lot, and you may disagree or agree with it, but we thought it was sororities and fraternities, sport teams, bigger orgs, like at A&M we have men's orgs, freshman orgs, stuff like that. And so we went to these guys and girls and said, hey, we're going to give you this thing called, we were going to originally do something like Instagram, but we even thought of a better idea where we're going to give you this account upgrade called God Mode. And it's only for you because you're the coolest at the university. All right? And you ride for free. Other people might be mad at you because you have this account, but it's only for you. And we would go to these universities and they would eat it up. They were like, oh, this is awesome. Now when they're with a group, and they're not always just traveling with their sorority or fraternity, now when they're with a group, what do you think they're gonna do? Hey, I have God mode, let's try Fetty, right? They're not gonna get excited about this free account. And even in the development of the app, whenever this person's account gets upgraded, it turns to gold, it says God mode, it's shimmering, it's the whole deal. Whenever we upgrade it, a pop-up comes up on the app that says, hey, Sarah, or whatever the name is, you've been noticed as a trendsetter in your community, and all this thing. And from there, it just blew up where everyone was like, hey, what is this thing? Why do you have it? Why don't I have it? It started getting talked about. People started using it, and it really took off from there. And like I was pointing out, a little bit prior as well, is that you add fuel to the fire with whenever Sarah tells her friends about it. Now you've got 12 people who know about Fetty that tell 12 of their friends, and after 2, 3, 4 months, a lot of the people at the university, at least the ones who are gonna go out and use Fetty, know about it.
It reminds me of some fun we did at Favor. Everything you're talking about reminds me a lot of that. But it wasn't as cool. Like, people kind of order delivery together, but not quite as much. But we did influencer parties when we launched, and we would invite all the kind of similar type of influential people. It was a little different for us, but we would throw a party and we'd give them all $50 favor credit that they had to use at the party. And we would basically, everyone at the party would favor their own food, and everyone would come up, and there'd be a bunch of favor runners, and like it would be very visible, and everyone would talk about it. And yeah, it's all about getting people to talk about what you're doing, and especially, yeah, kind of the folks that everyone's looking up to, right, in your marketplace.
Yeah. And then was there anything else?
It looks like he's got like 10 questions over
Literally.
there. I don't know if he's
Okay.
Yeah, let's pass it around. Who else has a question?
Wait, does it work? Oh, okay.
All right.
Hi, I'm Chloe. I know you touched on like kind of how you built up Fetty, like you were one of the people like driving the buses around and all that, but what does your current like day-to-day role look like? And then what is the co-founder's day-to-day role?
Yeah, so it's still a startup, so everyone wears multiple hats. Full time, we're seven people. We've got offshore development team as well. But in terms of full time here, it's 7 people, and we're transporting millions of passengers, hundreds of thousands of trips, 7+ cities. And so, as you can imagine, we're each doing a lot of things. And so, my role has definitely turned from kind of that entrepreneurial hustling, driving, all this on the ground, while I still want to make sure I'm in touch with that. It's come into a more of a delegation role. So it's making sure that our marketing is on track, our sales is on track, everything of that sort. A lot of it is the finances, the investment, board meetings with our board members. It's really just all over the place, and it's going to be like that for a while. A CEO who gets hired into a public company is just going to have a much different job than a CEO at a startup. So really the easiest answer to that is I just do whatever needs to be done in that moment. So if demand is lacking, I'm working with the marketing team and the sales team very hard to put in certain partnerships, work on our ambassador program, work on our outbound deal, funnel, different stuff like that. If supply is suffering, I'm meeting with PSPs. I'm doing active outbound to look for other operators who want to join on our platform. If capital is looking frosty, then I'm working on pitches. I'm going out, trying to raise capital, whether debt or equity. And so really it's just where the business needs me. So one week it could be something, the other week it's something else. And I think that's one of the things that people don't, a lot of people romanticize entrepreneurship, but it's it's a very stressful job because if something's going wrong, you're the person who has to deal with it, and a lot of times, at least something is going wrong all the time. Yeah.
So you keep talking about PSPs. I know you said that the drivers are like on a contract. Do you also have contracts with PSPs? And what happens when they run out? Do you plan on, like, what's your length of contract, and how do you plan on like reapproaching negotiations when you get to that point?
Good question. Yeah. So we've got the PSP is like a independent contractor of FETI, and when we run out, what do you mean by run out?
When your contract, like you have it for a number of years, like how will you reapproach negotiations as a bigger company?
Yeah. It's really not set up like that as a number of years. It's we've got this opportunity that makes them money, and they can't make it anywhere else. So it's just this mutually ongoing thing. They can get out of it whenever, we can get out of it whenever. Fortunately for us, there's just a lot of people who want to make money, and we've got a good way to make money right now. And so that's kind of what I mentioned in terms of marketplaces. If you can figure out demand, supply is easy, right? Because, I mean, if they can make money, people in this country are always going to want to make money, right? Yeah.
So I remember hearing that when you first got started, you had two separate transportation companies, and you would test your ideas out on one company to see what you wanted to do with your main company. And I was wondering how you test ideas out now that you're much bigger.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what she's talking about is whenever we bought that party bus business from those two students, after a month or so, we put in an offer to buy the only other competing party bus from two other students in College Station, and we bought them. And instead of merging the two companies together, we kept them separate. Each one only had a van, so this was just, or a bus, so this was just two buses. But we kept them separate, we kept the customer base separate, and what we would do is, obviously we had to grow and evolve this business into a scalable thing that people wanted to use. And so we would try a tactic on one company, see if it worked. If it worked, both companies did it. If it didn't, and we saw that these customers were going to the other competitor, which they didn't know was still owned by us, then we knew it didn't work. So I'll give you an example. We had to take cash out of the situation for this company to scale. We really just thought, okay, let's just see if people will prepay. But in a way where we took their credit card and we didn't run it until we knew how many people got on with the driver telling us. And so we did that, and a lot of people went to the other company because they didn't want to be the ones to put their credit card up, right? They didn't know how many people were going to show up. And we really were servicing this trip for free in the hopes that, number one, this card didn't get declined, and it went through. It just really wasn't efficient. And so we scrapped that idea. But that's an example of us trying different things, which eventually led to the QR scanning that we see now. And so to your point of how we do it now, we've got one thing that we have so many users that whenever we hear from 5-10% of them about an issue they have or something that they would want to see implemented in the app, with so many users, we feel pretty confident that that's the right move, listening to the customer like that. So a lot of the evolution and additions or removal of features have been just from listening to our users, which when we first started probably wasn't the right move just because we had so little. So I think that's a big thing. We could probably do better on A/B testing, right? So that's where we release a feature but only to 1,000 users, and we see if that works, which you start getting a little bit more complicated, but that's something down the road that we could start doing. But for right now, we've just been listening to our users and acting accordingly to that.
Try to get Matt's attention if you have more questions.
Raise your hand if you used a FETI outside of Austin. Anybody? Oh yeah, where'd you use it?
We used it at OU.
OU?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Do they
Okay,
still-
for the
Oh,
Texas
got it.
OU game, okay.
They
I
still
was gonna be
suck,
like,
right?
we're not an OU, so use somebody else.
Someone's got a
Yeah, I'm gonna have to ask you who you use.
Right.
So I know a lot of people, including myself, have like the approach of like, I have an idea and then I'm just gonna pitch to investors and I'm gonna get money and use that money to like make other people like actually make the idea come true. And that doesn't seem like something that's not something you've done for like any of your it seems like you're always on the ground, like actually doing it yourself. What do you think is the best approach for college founders like us to make our like startup dream come true? And like, how should we approach that?
Yeah, so definitely, there was, I think it was Brian from Airbnb who had a recent interview or somebody, but the way they framed it is that whenever you have a startup, the employees can love your product and love working on it and really want to build it great, but the founders are going to be the biological parents, right? This is their baby, no matter what. The shift never ends. I mean, you could be out with your friends, you're thinking about the business, you're trying to figure out ways to improve it, how to build it, how to work on it. It's just so statistically, the business is going to have a much higher chance if you're on the ground, if you're actually building it, and if you've got multiple people building it. If you've got a co-founder, if you've got multiple co-founders working on it and treating it as their baby, it's going to have a much higher chance of success. And so my advice is really to figure out a way where you're the one building it, and maybe, for example, it was me on the ground working with the buses, hiring the drivers, figuring out how this thing needs to be managed and built. But my co-founder is the one, our CTO, who was the one who was directing the offshore team, right? So maybe wasn't actively developing all of it, but was the person who was testing it, who was telling them how it needs to be built, what it needs to do with all their passion. And so you can't just say, there was a point at the beginning where I think we did make the mistake where we went to an offshore company that we'd previously worked with and we said, hey, we're doing this business, and we said we need an app like Uber, go build it for us. And it's a complete disaster. I mean, they're building it's just something that doesn't tailor towards it, and you really have to understand and go in. And honestly, offshore developers are known for having the issue where you can't be too broad, right? Whether it's a language barrier or just culturally, you have to go in and really tell them what it needs to do, how it needs to work, which I think is a pain, but has led us to really be strategic and decisive in what we do and how we do it, which I think helps out a lot.
All right, we have a couple more. All right, yeah.
I was wondering, in the future, do you have any plans of taking your company like Fedi or like more into like a sustainable route in terms of like positioning or strategy? Because like right now, obviously with Fedi, like you're minimizing the number of cars like on the road, and also it's with college students, it's minimizing like the amount of like drunk driving and all that stuff. So in terms of like, would you have any future plans of making it like a B Corp or going electric in the future? And if that works with electric, would you be considering the same model as you do that you don't own the current vehicles? Or with electric, would you be considering like buying those vehicles?
Yeah, so speaking on that, as a matter of fact, we'll include our first 5 electric vehicles into our Alabama market. Our PSP there is buying the new Ford E-Transit vans there. And the reason being is that it does come out to be cheaper in terms of the gas, down the road and how much we utilize it, the electricity versus gas, and the pricing is now competitive to where it makes sense. And I think it's an interesting conversation you bring up, because it's should we do that if it doesn't make sense for us financially, but it makes sense PR wise. And I think that's one thing to be careful of, and it goes to what he brought up, like PR wise, it makes much better sense if Fedi is this corporate thing that is, for everyone and corporate employees, and we're doing all this stuff. You have to be careful trying to build a company for people who aren't your target market. So if I'm buying these electric vehicles because it makes sense for PR, but I need to charge you guys more to make up for the margins, that's not going to help the business grow. Fortunately, we are in a place where the costs have come down substantially for electric vehicles to where it makes sense. And if it makes sense, we're all for it. We'll do it. But if it hindered the business, I think it's something to make sure you don't get caught up in.
Are you thinking about self-driving vans?
Self-driving vans. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if we get there. Yeah, the pros and cons. The pros are, I mean, if we had these vans 24/7, it's why Uber tried to build their own. I mean, for a ride share, it changes the whole game if drivers are out of the equation, unfortunately. But I think also that's what makes one thing about Fedi really nice as well, is that we've got, for the most part, a great set of drivers that add to that experience that I talk about is so valuable. So, when the time comes, we'll take a look at it. But right now, we're happy with where it is.
I did hear that Cruise, who has a couple hundred self-driving cars, they are using God mode around town.
Yeah, I saw that, and they're trying to do. I saw some TikToks with it.
It's got to be flattering. They ripped you off. I think that was obviously your idea first.
Well, did they call it that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, well, we're not worried about them.
No, they're very tiny. You can only fit a few people. All right, any other questions? All right, got a little time.
So I guess a question I hear about a lot of startup ideas is like, why now, right? So why couldn't have Fedi been started in 2017 or 2015 or 2012? And is this even like the right way of looking at things?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd agree with that whole notion. Investors are going to ask you why now. And so I'll give you an example why I'm not sure if I agree with it, because we're past the rideshare hype. We're past the rideshare phase. There's not that much capital going into rideshare companies the same way it was when Uber and Lyft came onto the scene, right? Where if you said you could raise $5 million on just a pitch deck for a rideshare company that only transported any women or only men or whatever it is, that's not the case anymore, because that hype has kind of come down. Lyft has had its issues. A lot of companies have gone bankrupt. The margins have been in question. So you could argue, well, now isn't the good time. It's already passed. But you can make the argument that now's the best time because Uber has paved the way regulatory-wise, where we don't have to spend millions of dollars in lobbyists for the taxi industry to kind of create these laws. You could make the argument that now is actually the best time because we don't have to worry about competitors coming in left and right? Because capital is harder to raise for this type of business. And so there's always pros and cons to the time and stage of what you're building. I will say if you've got the determination, I think that's the biggest thing that counts in terms of success.
The other thing I hear is like innovators pay the price, and there's a lot of social networks before Facebook, a lot of money invested in that, and so I think there's pros and cons to being early and late to market, and I think you just got to play your strengths, and there's always going to be a ton of challenges no matter what as the underdog.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right.
So how are you as a company going to deal with other larger companies, for example Toyota, with their new rideshare thing where they basically split a car into different parts and allow multiple people making multiple trips to go in a self-driving car? They just announced this a little bit ago. How are you guys going to compete with that if you have a company that's worth $80 billion or whatever it's worth now?
Yeah, so I could touch on that, which I don't know too much about. Real quick, let's hear like a 20-second what their solution is. You said split up cars. I don't know what that means.
Okay, yeah. So they are basically taking a car and allowing people to order it.
It's a sedan, SUV, what type of car?
It depends on how far you're going or how many people you're bringing with you.
Okay.
And it will pull up, it's self-driving, and it will pick you up and whoever else and take you where you need to go. It'll pick up multiple parties too, but it splits the car so that each party can have their own privacy.
Each party can have their own privacy.
Mm-hmm. Within the same car.
it splits up the car within the same car.
I mean,
So there's
we'll
like
start,
three
but
cars
it's
in
just
one car.
kind of hard to understand this idea, so that'll make it easy.
Yeah,
like,
maybe I'm not explaining it amazingly.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example with Uber. A lot of investors, VCs, hey, well, what if Uber just does this? And they actually have tried to, which has been good in a sense that they've legitimized this group transportation market. And so they came out with a product earlier this year, maybe late last year, called Uber Charter. And the way it works is you go onto the app. If you want a Sprinter van like a Fetty, or if you want a charter bus, you go putting your information, and you have to do this 3 days in advance. Okay, so already that's the first thing, right? It's not solving much, but let's just take note. You have to do it 3 days in advance. The second thing is that it's going to be about 70% higher cost than a Fetty. And then you'll ask why. I'll explain that in a second, but that's another thing. So it's more expensive. It takes more. You need 3 days in advance. It's already not sounding too good. And so the third thing, too, is that one person pays for it, right? And so now what have we just talked about? We've talked about the old solution that's outdated. And the reason they've done this, and the reason that they have to adhere to these negative aspects of this model, is because what they've done is you go into Uber Charter, you submit your request. They send the request to US Coachways, which is their partner. And what US Coachways is a broker system. So what US Coachways does is then submits your request to a lot of operators in that area, which then bid for it and will service it. So essentially what they've done is they've become a party bus business with the old outdated model. And the reason they've done this is because it's much easier, right? I mean, to build something that's going to impact customers is exactly that. You have to build it. And a lot of times these big companies will look at the bottom line and say, hey, a lot of our customers are coming from sedans, are coming from this and that. We don't want to take the resources and time to properly build out a feature or a function or a product that's tailored toward this group market. Instead, we're going to do it, and I'm sure they'll hear it, but we're going to do it half-ass, right? And we'll see if it works. And what they're really thinking is that, hey, if someone else does it, what are they going to do? They're going to make an offer to buy it and save the money and time. So we're not too worried about the big companies. I'd be more worried about startups trying to do it, just because they're more nimble and fast and focused.
Hello. Okay, yeah, as like the CEO of this startup, how is your work-life balance? And also, do you ever wish that you were in like not a startup role? Because you obviously have different career options. So do you what value do you see in? Sorry, I don't know if I'm phrasing this properly, but for instance, you said that the work never really ends. So do you ever wish that you had a role where there was someone telling you what to do, or do you think this is the right path for you?
Yeah, I never wish it, because if I wished it, I would just do it, right? I would just give it up and just do something else. But that doesn't go without saying that it's all peaches and roses. Like I said, you have to deal with so much stress and issues and problems that are arising. Whereas if you worked for another company, that's someone else's problem, right? It's it's a lot more stress. The work-life balance, you sacrifice a lot. For example, I mean, when I was doing the party buses, I had to drive every weekend, because when's the busiest time for that? Every weekend. So I wasn't going out with friends for a whole year. After that, when we got, as we were building it, managing drivers, it was hard for me to go out or focus on anything else, because all the time something was happening. A driver was calling me, hey, the bus isn't working, or I'm getting a call, hey, I can't come in 5 minutes before shift, so I have to go do it. So for a whole year, and it probably didn't, I've delegated, me and my co-founder, we've delegated enough to where it's not too much of an issue now. I've got a little bit more freedom, but for a year and a half, maybe 2 years, not having a weekend where you can relax can take a toll on a lot of people. So I mean, there's definitely a lot of sacrifices, a lot of risk. But I think it's worth it. Like I said, I'm in this opportunity to kind of do something that I think a lot of people haven't done, and I hope it doesn't stop with just Fetty or what it is right now. I hope it grows into a lot bigger things. I have a lot of bigger goals and visions for it. And fortunately, the position that I'm in right now allows me to believe those are feasible. Whereas if I maybe just went another route, I think it would kill me thinking that I have this desire to do something great and not being in a position to do it. That makes sense. So while it is very hard, I think it's harder not to deal with the stress, if that makes sense.
While he's walking, one of my least favorite things about working at Favor is like the times you want to take off the most are also the busiest for demand. And it was like, oh, Super Bowl, like everyone favors something. You're like, oh, like, you know, whatever. And so that was always, I had a similar thing like out in the market by myself. I'd have to like clock in on Sunday morning. Yeah, no one wanted to go. Everyone wants to order takeout like Sunday morning in Favor, but like no one wants to go run Favor.
Yeah, and it's not just me and my co-founder who are doing sacrifices. It's the whole team. A lot of the team's working on weekends. A lot of if I need something done and it's a Saturday, I mean, it'll get done because it needs to be. And that's one of the things that when I talk about the stress in a startup, let's say it's the person who handles marketing. They don't have a huge team under them in a startup where they can take a day off and the machine is still running. It's literally if that person is sick or if that person doesn't work or if something happens, for that whole day, the company has no marketing division. And think about that. If you multiply that between, for every weekend, if you're dealing with a company that's super focused and has people super committed and working on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they're gonna beat the team that is taking those weekends off and it's having fun on weekday nights and whatever it is. Because if you just, that exponential time that's being lost versus where the competitor is still utilizing, if you add that up, I don't know the math, maybe it's 2, 3, 4 extra months of marketing in a year that other company isn't doing. If you think about it that way, of course that company that is sacrificing the work-life balance is going to succeed, and that's what it takes.
How and when did you guys make the transition from having both the software and operational aspects of the company into just a software company? Because that's something that our company has struggled with as well.
Yeah, you're really, it's going to be, I can't remember the exact time, but I will tell you, I know it happened when it was forced to happen. So it happened when we didn't have the money to go out and buy more vans, right? It happened when we didn't have the money to get more vans, finance plus the insurance cost. And that's the part of the bootstrapping where it forced us to think of innovative ways to say, hey, we need to continue growing, but we don't have the money to keep growing this way. So what can we do? We put out this opportunity for someone to create their business and utilize our platform. That worked because we had the demand and we were able to grow and scale it that way. So everything that we did was out of necessity or user feedback.
Maybe time for one more. All right, I have one. How'd you come up with the name Fetty?
Yeah, so we wanted.
That was actually the biggest question I wanted to ask today.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't forget.
So we wanted to do something that was kind of this 2-syllable short techie word: Uber, Lyft, Fetty, and something that came off the tongue easily, but also left you questioning why the hell is it named Fetty, right? And came across it. It's a French oceanic term. That means an extension of one's family. So essentially we say when you're in a Fetty, you're with your family that might not be blood family, but you're with your squad, you're with your group. And we had a couple other options for the name of the company, but at the end of the day, this is the one that had the domain available.
Yeah, very important. All right, who do we have?
All right. So why did you make the switch from equity-based financing to debt-based financing? And was that for control or just cost reasons?
Yeah, it's definitely for you don't want to dilute yourself, and if you have to dilute yourself each time you want to expand, By the time you get to a scale where it's, you know, a really good price point, either IPO or cash flow or selling it, you're going to be left with nothing. So if you have to give up equity, if you have to raise capital or equity capital each time you want to grow, that's going to be unsustainable, not just for you as the founder, but also for the early investors. So they want to see, hey, if we give you $2 million, it's going to take you far, right? It's not going to say, hey, give us $2 million, but next year we have to raise another $2 million, and it's you know, you're left in the dust. And so at first that is what we had to do because we just had to get to scale. But now that we've got really good cash flow in, we've got really good revenue numbers, we can go to these banks, we can go to these revenue financing partners, show them our financials, and say, hey, you know, it's in the pudding. This is how much we spend. This is what we can make. This is how much we can pay you back. That we've done it across 7 cities. Give us this much money. You're going to get 10% on that loan. It's going to make us this much money, and it makes sense to continue growing that way without diluting ourselves. And so I think that's important to figure out in terms of long-term strategy. But at the beginning, people always are like, oh, nitpicking equity at the very beginning. You really got to make sure it's a business first before you're worried about equity.
Join me in thanking Matt for spending his evening with us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. A couple housekeeping items. 1, take pizza if you want. You got to get rid of the pizza. 2, no pressure, but come up and take a group picture with Matt and I.
I was going to say, yeah, can we do a quick group picture for our social medias?
Yeah, let's do a group picture.
Just real quick, everyone just behind here.
Awesome. And do the attendance. Don't forget the attendance.
Oh, and there's parking over here after.
And there's parking over here. All the usual stuff, you know. All right. Ferris, you getting in this?
Yeah. I'm not fat for it. I like how you tried to get right there in the middle of it,
Oh yeah. I also want to announce the winner of $100 bill pitch to Brandon. All right.
Congrats, Brandon.
Spend it all in one day. Nice. It's not going to Soho House.
Yeah, I think people from there might have to come back. Yeah, you might need to come to the back. Tall folks in the back.
Hey, because he's an Aggie, let's all do it. Work it up. It's an Aggie. Work it up.
Take one sideways and up. I know those columns here. All right, awesome. All right, so thank you guys. All right, y'all have a good night.
On Twitter, I'll give you you just do it right there, that's one for me. Because I asked Anthony, right? But Anthony didn't want to do it. Because you have to do like games every day. The game when I do all that. Also, he's the last person I got. So I'm gonna need your help in this. Dude, I don't know if you were like just big. I don't know. I don't know. Because I'm in one guy. Brian's running. You should be my first